Hey coders, welcome to another exciting full stack project on my channel. In this project, we are going to build a real estate website where the contents, especially these properties, gets loaded dynamically. This whole data is coming from the backend depending on what is currently available in our database. Our backend is PHP and MySQL based, and our front end is going to be Glassmorphic user interface. So basically this tinted look that you are seeing over here, this frosted glass look that you see, so our whole website is going to follow this theme. I have already published the demo of the project, which highlights different functionalities and capabilities that we are going to learn and implement to this project. In that demo, I have also mentioned the GitHub repository link that you can go to and get a file which contains the references to Pexels.com website, which contains all these images that we have used in this project. So without further ado, let's get our hands dirty with coding. Okay, now I have opened the project folder named Realtor in the Visual Studio Code Editor. As you can see, it consists of one folder named images and 3 files. One is index.html file, which is currently empty, as you can see to the right over here. Second is script.js file, this is also empty. And third is style.css file, which is also empty. So let's start with index.html file. They are empty because we are going to build this project together. I'm generating skeleton code. Let's change the title. Okay, now let's link our script and style files with this file index.html. So since file name is style.css, so let's keep it. And now at the end of this body element, let's link our script file, which is script.js. And just to make sure that this script file is loaded, once all the HTML contents have been loaded, let's attach this defer keyword. Now, as far as the contents of this body element are concerned, let's begin with our header element. So this is our header element. Currently, you can see it seems to be consisting of 2 elements, the logo to the left and the navigation bar to the right. But when we are on smaller screens, like this. So as you can see on smaller screens, you don't see the navigation menu. However, we see this icon, the menu bar icon, usually called hamburger icon. When I click on it, our drop down menu appears, which is same menu which we could see over here on bigger screens. And the icon changes from the hamburger to this cross. When we click on it again, that drop down menu disappears. So basically this header element consists of 3 children: logo, navigation menu, and these icons, which are invisible on bigger screens. So now let's create the HTML code for that header element. So let's create a header element, and this consists of 3 children. The first one is going to be anchor element with the class name logo. Let's keep the hrefs empty for the time being. Real estate pro. Okay, the second one is going to be a div with the class name icons. Now this icons div is going to consist of 2 children, a hamburger icon and a cross icon. For both of these elements, we can use HTML entities. So let's search for HTML entity for hamburger menu. It should be visible somewhere. Hamburger. How to show burger icon. This is the hamburger. Let's copy this. Let's create a div with the class name menu within the icons div and put in this code for the hamburger menu. For the second one, let's again create a div with the class name cross. And for that, we can go for cross symbol. Let's click over here. For the cross symbol, we have this option, which is actually cross, and another one is this X looking. If we use this one, it's actually easier to style it. So I'm going to go with this one. So copy this and paste it over here. Okay, now comes the third child, which is going to contain a nav element with the class name navlinks. And this is going to contain 7 anchor elements. Let's keep the hrefs empty for the time being, but let's give them some captions. So first one is home, then we have to buy, student, feature properties, services, about us, contact us. Okay. Since currently we are only focusing on building the user interface, so we are not going to involve the backend server. Instead, we are going to go with this live server, which is an extension in our Visual Studio Code editor. If you don't already have one, you can go to this one, which is extensions, and over here you can look for live server. So I already have this one installed. I don't need to install it, but if you don't have, you should install it. Okay, so in order to get the server started, let's click on this go live icon, and now it's showing the port where this one is actually running, and this is our project. Let's close this for the time being. Okay, I don't like this cross. I don't like this symbol either, so instead what I'm going to do is that I'm going to my demo project and copy the code for the cross symbol that I've used in the demo project. So let me paste it. So this is the one that I have used in the demo project, which is ##10005. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so now we have HTML code. Now we are ready to style them. We have already linked our CSS file, so let's go directly to our style file. So this is our style file. Let's start with the default global properties which apply to all HTML contents. Therefore, I stress. Basically, we are going to remove the default padding attached to HTML elements. Likewise, we have to remove the margin as well. Then we have to set box sizing to border box. Okay, and since we will also use before and after pseudo elements, I am not sure about after element, but at least we have used before pseudo element, so I'm going to attach this element with these global properties as well. Basically, I'm removing default margin and paddings and setting box sizing to border box. Then let's define some properties for the HTML, the whole document, that is the root of the document. And over here, first of all, let's set font size to 56, it's actually 62.5%. This is almost a standard. What this does is that it's going to set the basic unit from 16 pixels to 10 pixels, and when it's 10 pixels, it's easy to apply mental multiplication on it, such as we can double it by saying 2 rems, we can triple it by saying 3 rem, we can half it by saying 0.5 rem, so it's easier. The calculation becomes easier. So this is why we are doing this for the whole HTML document. Okay, then what else do we need to do? Let's set the font size, font family. We are going to go with the default ones. Let's go with this one. Okay, this is font family, font size, and let's set the overflow X hidden as well. We will eventually have vertical scroll bar, so scroll behavior, let's make it smooth, so it smoothly goes up and down rather than a sudden jump. So this ensures that if we quickly move the scroll bar up and down, that scrolling is smooth. Now let's define some properties for the body. Let's define font family. I think we have used Arial. Oh, let's remove it from here. I have already defined it over here as well. But for the project, we have used Arial. So we are keeping the font family for the body. And the other property that we should define over here is color of the text throughout the project, the whole website, which is a very, very dark brownish shade. It will look like a black shade, but it's actually a brown shade. The reason for defining over here is that by default, all the color will be this shade. However, wherever we need to explicitly change it, we will override this property only for those particular divs or elements. Otherwise, this is the default color. So these are the two properties for the body so far. Now we are ready to move on to the header element. Now our header element consists of 3 children, and by default they are all in their respective rows, so one after the other. Like this, we have to bring them into single row. So for that, we are going to set display to flex, and the default flex direction is row, so we don't need to specify it. However, justify content is going to be space between them, and align items is going to be centrally aligned. Let's define background color to see how much area is being occupied by the header. So let's give some temporary color, then I'll explain later. Let's give it this beige color. Okay, so this is how it currently looks. Let's put some space around these edges, left and right, and remove this underline, increase the font size and increase the height as well. So for the space around the edges, left and right edges, we are going to give it padding, and also for the height, instead of explicitly defining height, we are going to give this height through padding as well. So for the top and bottom, let's make it 1.5 frame, and for the left and right, let's make it 2.5 frame. So this 1.5 frame means 15 pixels, and this 2.5 frame means 25 pixels. Rem means relative to root element. So this HTML is the root element. So we have given this font size over here, we have set it to 10 pixels. So one unit by default for the browser consists of 16 pixels. By setting font size to 62.5%, we have technically set it to 10 pixels. So now when we say 1.5 frames, this means 15 pixels, 2.5 means 25 pixels. Let's increase the font size for the header as well. Let's make it 1.6 rem and see how does it look. Okay, so this is how it looks. Not bad, but maybe we should increase this font size a little bit more. So let's make it 1.8 rem, that is 18 pixels. Let's keep the size, then maybe we might increase it, but let's keep it for a while. Okay, after that, now let's define some generic properties for the anchor element. First of all, let's remove the underline, so text decoration is none, and text transform capitalize. Good. But if you notice the color that we have defined for the body, so it should have applied to all the children, but apparently these anchor elements have not been applied that color. The reason is that anchor elements by default contain color property. So because that color property, the default color property, is more specific to the anchor elements, so that takes precedence over generic property that we have defined for the body element. So we have to make sure our anchor elements are also the same color. We can write like this as well, but a slight inconvenience which it will cause is that if later on we decide to change the color and we change color over here, then we will have to come back over here manually change this property as well. So rather than giving it the value, we are going to set it to inherit. So this will inherit from the parent. So within the header element, all the anchor elements parent is header, and header has inherited the property from the body, this color property. So all the anchor elements within the header will also inherit this color property, and that color property will override the default color property. Okay, so as you can see, the color has been changed. Now let's go to the header. Let's give it font weight as well. Make it 600. Okay, now let's target these individual elements. Let's start with the logo. So header, there it has a child with the class name logo, and we are going to increase its font size from 1.8 rems to 2.2 rem. Okay, then after logo, let's move on to header and then nav links. Nav links, there let's target individual elements. Basically we want to put some space between those navigation elements, so we are going to give it some padding. For the top and bottom, let's make it 0 because we don't want to add more padding to the anchor elements. The header element already has some padding. So for the top and bottom, let's keep 0, and for the left and right, let's make it 1 rem. This is a nav links. Okay, I think that's better. Now we have to make these two icons invisible. Only when we are on smaller screens, these should be visible. So I'm going to target these two divs and then set its display property to none. So inside the header, we have icons, and then we have menu. We can do this, or since there is only one class with the class name menu, so we can directly target this as well. This is easier as well. For the cross as well, set its display property to none. Okay, so now as you can see, the icons have disappeared. The font, I'm not happy with the font weight. Let's make it 500. It's like right in the face. So let's make it 500. Okay, now we can give font weight 600 to this logo, chest logo. Override the font weight to 600. That's fine. Now we have to convert this background of this header into a frosted glass effect. So for that effect to be visible, something should be behind it so that it gets frosted. If nothing is behind it, we will not be able to see if this frosted glass effect has been created or not. So for that, what we are going to do is that we are going to create a section, hero section over here, which will contain an image as its background. So that image will be behind this header section, and then the effect it will create is that it will look like we are looking into that image through a frosted glass. So let's go to our index.html and let's just define a section with the class name hero and hash as well, hero. Okay, so currently let's keep it empty because we are not interested in section at the moment. We are only interested in giving it a background color. So let's go down. For the hero section, we have to give it width and height. So width is going to be 100% of the 100%, but let's check, have we defined width for the body? No, let's give it width 100% viewport width. So now giving this 100% width will cover the whole width of the browser window. Then okay, now for the height as well, minimum height, because the minimum height should be the whole window height, the whole height of the screen. So it's going to be 100% viewport height. Now we can create the background image. So we are going to go with the background, which is a kind of composite property. It's a kind of shorthand for multiple background related properties. Okay, so first of all, let's bring in the image. So for that we are using URL, and we have images folder, and there we have this Real Estate Pro 15. Then we don't want the image to be repeated, and the starting position of this image should be, with respect to this hero section, it should be top left corner, which is default position as well. Then we want the image to cover the whole area occupied by the hero section, so /cover. Let's have a peek. Okay, so this is how it looks, but let's remove this background. But there is one thing that I need to explain. But for that, let's remove this background color. Where is the header? Okay. The background color, let's comment this out. Okay, so if you notice, when we remove the background color, there is nothing behind it. The image starts right where the header element ends. They are not overlapping. So we wanted this image to be behind this header element. So this is the reason we are seeing this scroll bar as well, because we have forced our hero section to be of minimum height equivalent to the total height of this browser. So total height is this area plus the area covered by this header section. But because of the presence of this header element, the image has been pushed further down, and as a result we are seeing this scroll bar. If we move this image up over here to the top, then we will not see this scroll bar. To bring this image behind this header element, we have to create two layers in our browser window. So this whole window has one layer in which the first element of this body is this header element, and after that we have hero element. Now we are going to create two separate layers. In one layer, the first element will be, or the first child of the body will be this header element, and in the second layer, the first child of the body will be this hero section. And since both will be the first element of the body, they will both start over here, top left corner of the browser window. As a result, the image will come underneath this header element. So we will see this overlapping effect, and we will be able to see the image visible over here in this header area as well. So to do that, we have to take the header element from the normal flow and put it into a different layer. For that, we have to set the position property to fixed. When we set it to, when we give it value fixed, so fixed will always be with respect to the browser window. So now we have to define the properties: top 0, left 0, and we want it to cover the whole width of the browser window. So right is 0. We don't need to define the height. Height is created by the contents of the header element. Okay, so now you can see the image has been pushed up, and it starts with the top left corner just like the header element, but in a second layer. And now you can see the scroll bar has disappeared as well. Now we can work on defining the frosting effect over here. So for that we basically only need 2 properties. The real problem with the frosting effect comes when we have multiple elements nested inside each other and each one have their own frosting properties defined. Then it gets tricky. But for the time being, we are going to start with simple. Then we will eventually reach to a point where we will have nested element with blurring effect, and then we will see the actual problems. Then we might have to come and make changes to our styling as well to account for the nested frosting effect properties. Okay, but for the time being, to give it a frosting effect, we basically have to define 2 properties. One of them is background color, but we have to go with the RGBA with the alpha value. So for the red, let's give it 255. For the green, again 255. Blue 255. For the alpha, let's make it 0.2. Now the actual frosting effect, we need another property called backdrop filter, and we can assign different properties. One of them is blur, so let's make it 10 pixels. Now as you can see, there is this frosted effect. Over here it's not as visible because it's just light sky color and white color. But if you pay attention, you can see the blurring effect over there as well. But over here it's very clear. Now let's define the hover effect for these anchor elements. So we are going to define this hover effect for the anchor elements in the nav links. So copy, paste, and with this anchor element attach hover. So for the padding, let's make it 1 rem all around, and border radius, let's make it 0.4 rem, that is 4 pixels. We also need background color as well because otherwise it won't be visible. So let's make it RGBA 235, 233, 233, and make it 0.3. Okay, I think that's it. Now let's make it responsive by defining different attributes for smaller screens. So let's go down. We are attaching media queries. The first one is for screens 1200 pixels width, max width 1200 pixels. This is 12 pixels. Okay, this is first, then 2 more. The second one will have 768, the last one will have 480. This one is for laptops and bigger tablets. This one is for regular tablets, and this one is for mobile screens. Okay, for the 1200 pixels, let's define the font size from 62.5 to, let's give it 58%. Let's make it 58.5. I think we don't need to do any further changes for this one. Control C. This should not be 100, it should be 1200. 1200, 768 and 480. For the second one, let's change it to from 58 to make it 55. Okay, and for mobile, let's make it 52. Let's see its effect. Let's start with 1200. Okay, Yeah. Now let's go to 768. Okay. Good. I think this is fine. And 480. Okay, I think this is also fine. Now when we reach 768, we want this navigation bar to disappear and the icon, the hamburger icon should appear. Okay, so let's go to 768. Let's make it menu display block, and for the nav links we are going to set display flex. Flex direction is going to be columns. Okay, so we can see this icon and they are in a vertical direction. Now we have to take this navigation menu outside this header area and place it vertically over here. To do that, we have to set its position but with respect to the header element, and for that our header element should already have position property defined or set to anything other than the default one, which we have already done by setting its position to fixed. So now when we change the position of this one to something other than the default one, this will be placed with respect to its parent, which is going to be this whole header element. Then we can say wherever our header element ends, from there start placing this navigation links div. So position in this case is going to be absolute. We are not going to make it fixed, because fixed means with respect to the browser window. However, in this case we want it to be with respect to the header, so position absolute. Then top is going to be 100%, which means wherever our header element ends in terms of the height, from there start placing this div. And now we want it to be placed towards the right side of the window, so right is going to be 0 and the width is going to be 50% of the viewport window. The height, let's give it let's make it 92% and see how much area is being covered. We won't be able to see any height, so give it border to see how much area is being occupied by this div. So solid 1 pixel and black. This is temporary border. This is 95% of viewport height. Okay, maybe 95 is a lot. So now as you can see, the element has been placed right after our header element, but I think 95 is a lot, so let's make it 93. Yeah, we can see this edge over here. Let's define further styles. We are going to evenly distribute these elements throughout the length of this div. So for that, justify contents, let's make it space between. Okay, good. Align items, flex start. Okay, now let's put in some space over here at the top and the bottom as well. So heading, top and bottom 2 rem, left and right 1 rem. Okay, now let's give it glass morphic effect as well. So for that, let's go up and copy these 2 properties from the header. Copy, let's go down and paste it over here. But if you notice, we can see some difference, but this difference is not actually a frosted glass effect. Rather it's because of the alpha property in the RGBA. So this is actually not frosting. This one is frosting, this is not frosting. So the now question is why this part is not frosted. The reason is that this actually is a child of this header element. So there is a concept of backdrop root when it comes to backdrop filters. So the idea is, if a parent has already defined a backdrop root or already created a backdrop root, so whenever we define a backdrop property, backdrop filter property, a new root is created. So if a root already exists, then the children will also inherit the same root. That means even if you define backdrop filter property for the children, they will still look at the space occupied by the parent root, and only that root will be frosted. As a result, this new area is not frosted. So in order for these two elements to be frosted, whenever these two elements are nested inside each other, we have to make sure that somehow their parents are not the same. Now in our case, clearly this div has the parent, which is header, this one. So we have to somehow come up with an idea in which the root which is creating the frosting effect over here does not contain a child, which is this nav-links element. So to do that, we have to move the frosting properties from the header to one of its pseudo elements, which is before and after. Every HTML element has two pseudo elements attached to them, before and after. Because they are by default empty, so we don't see them on the screen. But if you put any contents into those elements, you will be able to see those before and after elements. So what we are going to do is that we are going to move those properties from the header to the before element of the header. This way, the header itself does not have these frosting properties defined, and the header has this child nav-links. So now nav-links can define its own backdrop filter property, and this frosting property will come from the before element. We will move the frosting properties to the before element associated with the header. This way, these two elements will not share the same backdrop root. Okay, so let's get with it. Let's go up to the header. Okay, let's target the before element of the header, and now let's move these two properties. But contents of before and after elements are not visible unless we define this content property. We don't have any content, so we are putting empty string. Okay, now we also have to give it some width and height. So we have to make sure the before element sits on top of the header element or occupies as much space as the header is occupying. So what we are going to do is that we are going to set its position to absolute as well. So top is going to be 0. Now this absolute is again with respect to this header element. Top is 0, left is 0, right is also 0. For the height, let's make it 100%. That is 100% of the parent, which is this header. Now let's have a peek. Now as you can see, there is frosting effect and frosting effect over here as well. However, the logo has become invisible, and if we increase the size, there is nothing visible. That's because now our before element is sitting on top of the actual header elements. So those contents are also invisible. So we have to make those visible as well. So for that, what we are going to do is that for the before element, we are setting the Z index to -1. So this has a lower index, so it will sit underneath the actual before element. Now you can see the contents of the header are back, and we have got the frosting effect as well. Now for the time being, the only thing that we want to change when we enter into 480 pixel spaces is 480. So this area should be, the width of this drop down menu should be 100%. Okay, so let's go back down, and this is 768 pixels for this nav-links. Copy, come here and set the width to 100%. Okay, I'm thinking maybe we should bring these navigation items in the center when it covers the whole screen, and maybe we should bring back the 700 font weight back, because this doesn't seem prominent enough. So let's get to it. Okay, so copy, paste, and align items. Let's make them center. Okay, that's better. Now let's go back to the top, and for the header, okay, over here Let's make it 600. We don't need this. Okay, that's better. Okay, yeah, I think that's better. Now let's remove this background, and initially this should be invisible. So let's go back to 768 and remove the border. So where is the border? Over here. Let's comment this out, and yeah, this is how it looks without the border, and initially this should be invisible. So let's set display, or let's keep the display same. What we are gonna do is that we are going to make right minus 100%. Now the nav links div is beyond the visible area of the browser width. Let's have a look. Okay, so it's invisible. Great. Okay, now when we click on this one, the navigation bar should appear. So what we are going to do is that navlinks.show. So when any div has these two classes attached, we want this right moved back to 0. Okay, so in order to test it out, we need JavaScript, but currently we haven't yet defined any logic for the JavaScript. So we are going to attach this class through console of the developers tool. So document dot, query selector, and the class name is navlinks. To this we are gonna add another class which is show, and you can see it has reappeared. Let's remove it, and it disappeared. Now let's test it out in 480. Okay, over here, add, and it's visible. Remove, and it disappeared. So we will associate this logic with the click events of these two menu icons. So why not just do that? Let's go to the script file and get a reference to that menu icon. So const menu is document.get element by class name, and the class name is navlinks. We need reference to the cross as well, so copy paste cross, and okay, so we don't need reference to the navlinks, do we? Yeah, we need a reference to the navlinks, but change it navlinks. Now we need a reference to the menu bar as menu icon as well, the div which contains the menu icon. So this one is going to be menu, and we haven't changed the class name over here as well. So this one is going to be dot menu. No, we have used get element by class name, so we don't need to put a dot over here. And over here, let's make it cross. So we have a constant called navlinks which contains a reference to this whole div navlinks, which contains the individual navigation items. Then we have a reference to the div which contains the cross icon, and then we have a reference to the div which contains the menu icon. So when we click on menu, this icon should disappear, cross should appear, and this navlinks should appear as well. And when this cross is visible and we click on the cross should disappear, menu icon should appear, and these links should disappear as well. So this is the logic. So basically we have to define two event listeners, one with the cross and one with the menu. So menu dot add event listener, event is click, and let's define arrow function. So when this menu is visible, when we click it, we want this menu to disappear. To make it disappear, we have to remove the show show class from it. So menu dot class list dot remove show, and we want this cross to appear. Cross dot class list dot add show. So this will make the cross appear, and we have to make this nav links visible as well. So we have to attach the show class with that as well. So nav links dot class list dot add, and let's make it show attach show. But that reminds me, we have to define these classes. We have to define this show class for the cross and menu icons as well, which I think we haven't. So let's go to our styles. We have only defined it for the nav links. So menu dot show and cross dot show. Let's say display from none to block. Menu dot show, cross dot show. Okay, fingers crossed. Let's hope it will work. But we have to do the same for our cross as well. So cross dot, we are attaching event, click event listener. Then when the cross is clicked, we want this menu to reappear. So add, and we want this cross to disappear. So remove, and let's bring this one up. So first this cross should disappear, then menu should appear, and nav links should appear, disappear as well. Let's hope. Let's test it out. I'm not looking forward to any kind of errors anymore. Nope. Let me test. Okay, something went terribly wrong. Menu add event listener is not a function. Why not? Oh, I see. Okay, got it. So over here, because we are using get elements by class name, so if you notice, this is plural. So this basically returns a collection, HTML collection of element. So that's why to a whole collection we can't attach an event listener. So we are reverting back to query selector. So let's use query selector, and now we have to put back this dot, and we have to do the same for the other two as well. And over here as well. Let's put back the dot. Now let's test it out. Yo, good. Okay. This menu icon should have disappeared. So when we click on this menu icon, menu remove. Why didn't it remove? Menu.class list dot remove show. Let's go to our style and let's verify we haven't made any kind of menu display none, cross display none. Oh, I think it's because of this. So basically our event listener is working just fine, but because of this media query, we are forcing this menu icon to appear. So what we are gonna do is that we are gonna remove it from here, but this will create another problem. That is, when we are over here, when we enter into this media screen, we won't be able to see this menu icon. So to attach this property when we enter this screen, instead of defining it over here, we are going to define another event listener, which is called DOM content loaded. Let me see. So DOM content loaded event gets triggered every time the page gets loaded into the browser for the first time. So what we are going to do is that document dot add event listener, which is DOM content loaded. So what we are going to do over here is that when the page is loaded for the first time, we want to check the width of the viewport, width of the browser window, and if it's 768 pixels or less, we want initially this menu bar to be visible as well. And then for the rest of the times, these event listeners will suffice. So this is menu. Let's copy this part and paste it over here. But this will create a similar type of problem, because over here we are making this menu icon to be visible unconditionally. So whenever the page is loaded into the browser, it will make that menu icon visible. We only want this menu icon to be visible if the window screen is less than or equal to 760 pixels. We don't want it to be visible when it's greater than 768 pixels for laptops and for bigger desktops and for desktops. Let's verify. So click and the menu has disappeared. Cross, it's working. But if we are over here, okay, this is maybe I was overthinking. So apparently this as it is suffices, which is strange. It should not work the way it is working. Oh, I see. Okay, the reason it is working because, let me show you. Let's go to bigger screens. Let's refresh it so that the DOM content loaded event is triggered. Now over here, document dot query selector, and the particular element we are interested in is menu. Now let's check the class list. So it shows both the classes menu and show. So basically this show class has been attached to this menu div, but because this show class does not exist in the media queries bigger than 768 pixels, so this show is not doing anything. Once we reach that 768 threshold, now that show contains display block. So now it's making it visible. So that's why it's working, and that's why we don't need to define or modify the logic in this event listener. However, if we had defined this show class globally at the top over here, not in the media query 768, then we would have to make this one conditional. But right now we don't need it. Okay, so this part is done. Now there's one more thing that we need to do, which is if we click on any of these navigation items, then this drop down menu should disappear, but currently it won't happen. Okay, let's click services. Now this is this is happening because our hrefs are empty. So every time the whole page is reloaded. So maybe this is the time to define our hrefs. Okay, so let's go to index.html, and before we assign any values to these hrefs, first of all we need sections. So I am going to create a section for featured properties with the class name featured, as well as an ID featured as well, because this ID will be used for the hrefs over here. Okay, let me copy paste it 3 more times. The second one is going to be for services. Then this one is going to be for the contact, and now about. The other two parts, this one, the to buy and to rent, these are going to be completely different pages. So we don't need hrefs for them. I mean, we will define hrefs, but not these hash values. Once we define those pages, we will come back and put in the respective values over here. But let's keep them empty for the time being. Okay. Now for the home, let's put #hero. So whenever we click on the home menu item or the navigation item, we will be redirected to this hero section. We have to keep to buy and to rent empty because we haven't yet defined those pages. But for the featured, let's put in #featured and #services. Then over here, #about and #contact. So we need to bring this section at the end as well. The context section should be at the bottom. Okay, that's it. Now let's go back to the original problem that we were discussing. Let's refresh it. Now one more time. Let's click on services. So even though the URL is changing, but we can still see the drop down menu. So this drop down menu will disappear only when we click on this cross symbol. But we want it to disappear as soon as we click on any of these navigation links as well. So to make it happen, what we can do is that basically we have two options. The first one is associate the disappearance of this drop down menu as soon as the scroll bar is moved even a little bit. So suppose we are currently on the contact us section, that means we will be quite down on our web page. Then if we click on, let's say, featured, so we will be scrolled back up automatically to bring this featured section in view. So we can define an event listener with the movement of the scroll bar. As soon as the scroll bar moves and if this drop down menu is visible, it should disappear. The other option is we can associate an event listener with all of these elements. As soon as any of these navigation items have been clicked, this navigation bar should disappear. I think the second option is better because let's suppose we are currently on the contact us page and we click on the contact us page. Because we are already on the contact us page, the scroll bar might not move. So in that case, that will mean this drop down menu will also be present. However, if we have associated it with the click events, then even if we are already on the contact us page and this drop down menu is visible and again we click on the contact us page, this menu will get visible. Okay, so we are going to go with the second option. We need a constant. Let's copy paste it and change the constant from nav links to make it menu items. And since they are anchor elements within this div, so put in A. Now this will return, now there are more than one anchor element, so we have to use query selector all. Okay, now menu items dot for each item. Now to each of these items, let's attach event listeners. So the event is clicked. In the arrow function, we want whatever is defined over here. No, sorry, this one with the cross. So the same logic should happen that is happening when we are clicking on the cross. So the cross icon should disappear, menu icon should reappear, and the whole drop down menu should disappear. So copy this part and paste it over here. Let's verify. Okay, let's click on about and it disappeared even though the URL has been changed. Okay, contact, good, disappeared, and this one is also working. Featured, good. So I think we are done with everything related to the navigation bar, that is our header section. In the next video we will pick up from here. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please do not forget to like this, comment it, share it, and subscribe my channel. Thank you so much.